Thank you for joining us for our latest installment of our leadership webinar series, Beating Back COVID, 5 South Carolina Companies Leading the Way. SCbio represents the life science industry. There are more than 650 firms in our state. As an economic development organization, we are focused on building, advancing, innovating, and growing our industry and our ecosystem. During today's program, we will share the stories of the important work being conducted in our state that is helping us through this pandemic. You'll meet some of the leaders making a difference. In fact, 71 South Carolina companies have pivoted or enhanced operations to respond to this crisis. We hope sharing their insights today, you can find some reasons to be optimistic as we work to return to some form of normalcy while still navigating in this crisis. I'm Erin Ford, Executive Vice President of SCbio, and I will be moderating today's discussion. We are thankful for our partners at Medpoint who are sponsoring today's discussion. Dana Clark is Director of Operations of Medpoint based in Greenville. She has a background in project management and is lead auditor certified to 9001 ISO. As director, Dana provides day-to-day leadership and management of the operation team and serves as the primary interface with clients. Dana, Medpoint was one of the service providers that we called on when we had executives reaching out to us as they wanted to change their operations to help at the beginning of this crisis. They were asking what standards they had to meet. As an example, adding hand sanitizer as a product. Dana, share a little bit more about Medpoint and how you help companies stay on track with the FDA and those industry standards.
Thanks, Erin, and I appreciate the introduction. Before I give a little bit about that, I just wanted to give a background on Medpoint for some of you that might not know us as well. We were founded in 2002, and we are based in Greenville, South Carolina. Our Medpoint team is comprised of over 250 subject matter expert consultants that are strategically located around the globe. Our consultants support in regulatory, quality, and clinical and medical device support, specifically for the medical device, pharmaceutical, and biotechnology industries. One of the great things about Medpoint is that our team of consultants can support projects ranging from program management all the way to full-time direct placement. To name just a few things that make Medpoint unique include our leadership has extensive life science industry experience. Within the heart of Medpoint is our ISO 9001 certified quality management system and our ability to scale to any need that you or your company might have. Like all the presenters and many of the attendees on the calls today, Medpoint has shifted in anticipation of and as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whether it has been helping clients to maintain oversight of their quality supply chain by leveraging technology, helping clients to compliantly shift to meet demands for PPE, utilizing the FDA's EUAs, assisting with validation of new manufacturing processes, or qualifying labs to support vaccine development, or developing submission strategies for long-term pre-market approvals. Medpoint has been helping our clients make a difference in the fight against COVID-19. Again, it's our pleasure to sponsor this event today, and I'll push it back to you, Erin. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dana, and to Medpoint for sponsoring today. Well, COVID-19 testing is an essential element to beating back COVID. Shea, Harrelson, and Scotty Branch, co-founders of Vycore Scientific, join us from their headquarters at West Edge in Charleston. Their company is a market leader in molecular diagnostics, and they're at the forefront of testing, developing a COVID-19 test early on in the pandemic. So Shea and Scotty, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to get right to it. What was the turning point or moment that you had decided to adjust your operations to battle COVID, and what was that adjustment?
Thank you, Erin. So it's a very exciting time for us because we were actually built for this moment. We started in May of 2018, and we were built off of antibiotic stewardship. And we comprised about 5 or 6 different panels that were molecular pathogen panels at the time. So when COVID hit, from a scientific standpoint, we were really primed and ready, and we just focused on COVID as one of the 280 pathogens that we already test. Also, we were going through a move transitionally from the SCRA building to the West Edge at 22 West Edge. And we moved from 6,000 square feet to 22,000 square feet. And that enabled us to really focus specific areas just on COVID.
Yes, so I'm going to elaborate. Hey, good morning, Erin. How are you?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm showing a shot of your offices, which is amazing.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
So really, Shea kind of elaborated on the fact that, you know, this is who we are, the backbone of what we do. For us, the true decision was just to be strong leaders through the pandemic. We knew that we'd be able to scale. We knew we understood the science and what it would take to actually serve not only the state of South Carolina, which is where our passion lies, but also we're a nationwide company. So serving, you know, patients throughout the USA was just something that we knew it would be challenging. And I think most leaders would say that. There's no real way to build a pro forma. There's no real way to understand day to day what it would look like in terms of growth. And so we just had to be strong leaders and make a commitment to invest fully in serving the pandemic and the patients. And we just felt like ethically, that's the route that we should take based upon what Shea told you, and that's being kind of built for this moment.
Well, we, as we have gotten to know you over the past year and counting, it has been amazing to see your passion for the patients, and that is really what is driving this. You know, you are. Do you find more people are finding out about Vikor? You know, I'm going to show a shot of the Lieutenant Governor visiting. You know, how has COVID changed your company, both operationally and, you know, externally?
Well, we'll start with your first question, operationally. So really, our answer is that it hasn't changed us. Our hope is that it's changed others. Shea and I have been carrying this torch for the better part of 5 years now in terms of what molecular panels can do, the depth of which we can personalize medicine, which on the back end reduces the economics, as you see, with hospitalizations and even death. So, you know, again, we're hoping that if something positive comes from the pandemic, it's this point, that people now understand where would we be without molecular technology and how powerful it is in terms of saving lives and serving others. So we hope that the payers, that the residents, that physicians and all start to understand that we have something special with this technology, especially PCR technology with the accuracy and speed. So it's eliminated. It's eliminated waiting times for diagnosis. It's eliminated multiple tests being run. We've combined all of this from one test in one day is kind of our new thing to say, hey, you know, we need to use the power of this technology because it saves us back-end healthcare costs due to complications of pandemics and infection. And I think your other question was just PR related. So that's an easy answer. Sam and the team. So you guys have been fascinating for us in terms of helping us carry the torch and getting our names out there. We're 2 years into the Vycore commercialization. We're about 5 years into since we kind of took the concept through research. So, you know, we hope that the momentum continues. There's so many great partners that everyone's going to hear from today, and from Steve to Lou to you name it. And I think what's special is that we're all just trying to unite. We're in a troubled times. We're in a crisis. And so, you know, getting all of us together is where we really get the PR that we need to show that we're a community working towards kind of solving this crisis.
Well, we're happy that you're here in South Carolina and that you're at the forefront. And I know both of you are always looking ahead. So what is next? What is next for Vikor?
Well, immediately what's next is we're getting ready to launch our mobile units in South Carolina. So even though we're a national company, this has given us the opportunity to really hone in on South Carolina and look at the underserved areas as well as the cities. So we're testing about 10,000 COVID tests a day right now, and we have the capacity for 20,000. So we hope in about 2 weeks, we're able to really reach out to South Carolina and show that, you know, they don't have to be frustrated with a 2-week turnaround time anymore.
Yeah, and then the second part of the answer is, not to interrupt you, Erin, but the second part of the answer, which I think is important, especially for the state and life sciences and even the partners that we met with the governor and on the call today, is, you know, we formed our second company about 8 months ago, which is Core Life Sciences, which is our research division. And it's led by Dr. Saeed Khan, who was lead drug discovery at Johns Hopkins and MD Anderson, and then was directly involved with the FDA when we hired him. So we brought in our medicinal chemist, our molecular biologist. So those research has started at this point. So we're truly excited about that. Our 3 to 5 year vision is to bring a molecule to market, quite simply, develop a new technology in oncology or in device. So having these partnerships and making these connections is crucial to us because, as stated, we're going to need a full ecosystem all the way through manufacturing to kind of bring this vision not only to Shea and Scotty, but really to the state of South Carolina to keep it moving forward, because I know you guys and Sam does a great job of kind of pushing the torch of just how important life sciences is playing in such a small state of South Carolina, even though it's maybe known for other industry. We're making a big move here, and all the PR that we can get built around research and technology is the way we want to go.
Well, we thank you for sharing your story and learning sort of the behind the scenes, answers to when we see maybe pictures of, Lieutenant Governor touring, right? The understanding what you're doing and how important it is to us here in South Carolina and, across the nation. So Shea and Scotty, thank you. We will look forward to continued developments. And having Shea and Scotty, they're industry experts. They had their life science background to help make their decision to develop the COVID-19 testing. Our next panelist, who is John Carrington, he took a leap of faith during this pandemic. John Carrington is CEO of Zverse, a 3D printing software startup company, now with more than 70 employees, now a national leader in face shield productions. He is headquartered, his company, in Colombia. So John, we appreciate you joining us here this morning. Same sort of question we'll start off with, what led to your decision to change operations, including making that move to injection molding from what you knew best, 3D printing?
Thanks, Erin. Well, really, so Zverse has been an enabler of on-demand manufacturing for many years. And we've done that through our software platform, a CAD as a service platform, and also 3D printing capabilities. So we really are in our normal life. I mean, we've been, before COVID, we were working with global manufacturers and even down to inventors to really provide the fastest path from ideas to manufacture parts. What changed here, I mean, our company, we were, our customers were disrupted like everyone else. Our company was disrupted. We started receiving calls from local regional hospitals, CFOs calling at 9 o'clock at night, which, anyone that works in life sciences understands how difficult it is to find a decision maker. But when they're calling you at 9 o'clock at night, we knew something was really wrong. And so we started receiving requests first for protective face shields, ventilator components, all sorts of things, because they knew of our 3D printing capabilities. And so we went to work immediately to design a few different devices, and face shields happened to be one of those. And so we started addressing those, right? And so producing a couple thousand a day. But very quickly, within a week, we had orders of 3,000 and 10,000 and 50,000. And at that point, I knew that 3D printing really was not going to be able to scale for that, right? It's great for if you need something that's super complex, you need it tomorrow, something that doesn't exist, right? But if you need hundreds of thousands of units, it's not great. So we moved quickly to injection molding. That's something that we have done. We do, like I said, our platform integrates with some of the largest injection molders in the country. And started spinning up tooling. So we went in 14 days, we went from design to producing the first 5,000 units coming off the first tool, and then quickly ramped to 120,000 units a day. And that was for, these shields that were meant to be used in the ICU. And we produced probably 3 million of those and shipped them in over the course of 75 days. That was different for us in the sense that, we had not typically had, multiple truckloads, 18-wheelers coming in and out. We didn't even have really the docking for that. We had to scramble to find temporary warehouses, first borrowing people's warehouses, and trying to operate in while everybody shut down, and then working out logistics and everything else. So our core business again was software and on-demand manufacturing, and now we're turning into one of the largest mass manufacturers in the country.
I remember when that started, because we were working with our partners at SCmep as well, and remember you coming online. So you made this decision, and you said you've had these relationships. How important were those? Because how did you find willing partners to go in with you on this business? It seemed like everybody was turning and making face shields. So what was the sort of difference in your partnerships, or talk more about that?
Well, I mean, I think the difference really is maybe it's naivete for one, or just, but, I first started really just by reaching out to, I have a great group of shareholders, and I started sending these kind of, emails, to kind of become classic, these emails to a group of shareholders and what I kind of call the Delta Force of people that I know of who can help, right? So it's CEOs, other friends in different areas, scientists and everything else. And really anyone that I thought could connect me to someone else and going to help. And the real challenge was, we were moving, we had orders immediately of hundreds of thousands of units. So we had to scale very quickly. SCRA was really helpful in that as well. We've had a relationship with them for a long time. They were an early investor. And some others, and then also just calling in favors. And one of our best partners is a large publicly traded company, one of the largest injection molders in the country, and I was called in favor to the CEO, and so it pays to have good relationships and like that. And lastly, we were also receiving, as we're getting all these requests from hospital administrators, purchase managers, all these things. Our team, which was all working remote now, and dealing with their kids at home on Zoom, they weren't used to fielding these types of requests. And one morning I was on the way to the office, and I told my wife, it's like, I don't know what to do. We can't even help a lot of these people because there's only 2 people really, or 3 people that can actually have a conversation. And she had the best idea. She suggested, well, all your buddies are medical device reps, sitting on their butt right now because elective surgeries are canceled. So why don't you call them? And that actually was a tremendous help. So we were able to serve, like I said, over 3 million, health workers in the country, very rapidly.
Yes, which is amazing. You had to call on, right, the folks you needed. It didn't matter who they were. You got to use those connections. It's so important. We do have a question that has just come in from one of our viewers. Are the face shields used in medical situations by FDA as surgical apparel? And so I know you probably had to work with folks as far as some are in schools, some are in hospitals. Can you talk to that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the original shield that we produced is FDA registered, right? So this the iteration I showed was actually the 2nd or 3rd iteration. So as CDC guidelines were changing almost daily, initially it was just they need protection, something to cover their face. The next was we need the top closed because aerosols, we believe, are can get in the top. So we made changes to tooling as we were going, and so that's FDA registered. And then I think that the new shield that we designed is CDC compliant. It's not registered with FDA, but it's their Medical One device, but that is CDC compliant as well. We recommend them using with a mask, and depending on the environment that they're in as well.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you answering that question because we know there are a lot of specifics, right, as you navigate in this industry. Speaking of which, even how hospitals order PPE. You said you had executives calling you, CEOs, folks that were reaching out in need. Do you see the model of how hospitals order PPE, face shields changing? And then, even the second part of that is just what does the future hold for, you think, the widespread use of face shields and Z shields?
Yeah, I definitely think that the way hospitals order right now will change. There's incredible need for a strong domestic supply chain of PPE, medical devices, and really all throughout manufacturing. Like I said, in our ongoing business, I mean, we work with large manufacturers of everything from large global construction equipment companies to you name it, and everyone is feeling this pain of the supply chain. I do believe that that there's obviously a lot of will now, because the pain has been so great, to change that. And I think there's a lot of folks in DC that are working on ways to incentivize more production of PPE in the U.S. There's some things that aren't going to be able to be produced here anytime soon. Things that require a lot of manual assembly and that sort of thing. It's going to be difficult to compete with overseas today. So I see that changing. As a whole, would also see, with the future in terms of, as talking about PPE itself, I think, moving forward, the world is all about sensors and barriers, right? I mean, sensors to limit how much we have to touch surfaces, right? Whether it's entering indoors or, you name it, but, and also barriers to sort of compartmentalize, if we can, potentially infectious matter as well, right? And this is sort of been the pandemic has been really a 9/11 moment. So if you think about before 9/11, the idea of going taking your shoes off at the airport, or going through security just to go to a football game, it was be considered a hassle, right? And today, I think if you walk into a football, a large crowded event and there's no security, I think most people get nervous, right? That there's potential for something to happen. And I believe that that's going to be the case with, as it relates to this. And there's a new standard of hygiene. And I tell people, 6 months ago, if you were at Chipotle and ordering food and there was no glass barrier between customers and the food, you would think, wow, you would feel really uncomfortable. At a minimum, it's gross, and at a worst, you may contract something, right? But now we know the person behind the counter is, by all these videos showing droplets being spread through just talking, we know the person taking your order is, again, there's transferring droplets all over your food, which you may not get sick, but most people think it's gross. So I think that there's just going to be a new sort of standard for hygiene. Face shields, we believe, is one of those. We're working on not only face shields, but a whole host of other things. Again, for ourselves, this is the first product we brought to market. In our normal life, I mean, in our ongoing, which is thriving, is working with other companies bringing their products to market. But in case of, for specifically face shields, we introduced this because the healthcare face shields, or ones being used in the ICU, are just not really appropriate for in a restaurant. If you see somebody wearing that, full hazmat sort of setup, most people aren't going to be comfortable doing that. So we introduced this. This has been received just wildly. It's being used by probably over 1,000 schools right now. Businesses. I mean, we've had over 100,000 orders just in the last, 70 days, I think. From ones to thousands. So devices like this, we believe will be a new standard, in food safety, for instance. We're working on other devices, which are, we call this a little bit of pandemic fashion, because a lot of, if this thing goes on, people want things, that they can wear in different situations that are athletic, and we're just responding to what people's requests are. So we're working with some really interesting companies on different technologies for the actual visors themselves, and some patent pending designs that we have. Lastly, we are also, as things going, and we were also working with, I've got a whole host of these right now. We're located right near to USC, and I can tell you, these guys are about as urgent as the healthcare providers were back in April. So in the spring, we were helping frontline workers and now we're even helping the O-line workers. So we cover it all.
That's right. Well, we appreciate that. There are a lot of people probably watching that are very excited to see you helping in football as well. But that's exciting that you are helping with setting that new standard of hygiene, as you say. So it's exciting to have you as part of the life science ecosystem here in South Carolina, John. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, another South Carolina startup made a decision to adjust its product offerings, and so they are up next, and it is Modjoul. Modjoul is a data analytics startup company. They are based in the upstate in Clemson. Jen Thorson is COO and founder of Modjoul, and she is going to share Modjoul's story and how they have adjusted amidst this pandemic. So Jen, thank you for joining us here this morning. You know, Modjoul is focused on worker safety. Your technology is helping with screening, contact tracing. We hear a lot about those subjects. So explain how your innovations are helping in those areas.
Right. Thank you so much, Erin. Thanks everyone for having me. Well, we started our business in 2016 with the intent of helping to keep workers safe and helping employers reduce their operational risk. When COVID hit in March, we did a quick pivot. We already had a platform developed to help keep employees safe. We did a quick pivot, developed a screening app, and then and we also were able to, with our existing wearable, we're able to do contact tracing and social distancing. So when you think about it, you're able to reduce the amount of time that businesses are shut down because you know who people have been in contact with. And so what we've seen with businesses is oftentimes it is overwhelming. The screening is very manual process. The contact tracing is just, they're not even thinking about it right now. But this allows to really take that administration down and then just allow those employees to get back to work and also just feel comfortable being at work. Just really understanding that everybody's at work has been screened with their employers doing as much as they can to make sure that they're keeping proper distance. And so that's really where we're at. But again, you know, it's just one of those happy coincidences that we're able to use our existing device not only for safety, but then also just for that illness and contact tracing and social distancing.
And there's a lot that goes into it. I want to go to this next slide that you have. And so it's very, I know you're not going to get into all these details, though. Explain a little bit more how it works, because you were talking, you know, you sort of had the technology. It's just that little bit of adjustment that can help, really help in this situation.
Yeah, so I know this is a little bit of a busy slide, but so we're able to track that the lumbar safety, the metrics of exertion, things like the bending, twisting, walking, understanding efficiency of jobs, for instance. You know, we can tell if people are lying down, and just really understand kind of the risk of, you know, that chronic back issues. But with using our device, we're able to use our Wi-Fi RSSI, which is basically using the sensor to look for another sensor. And so you're able to tell if people are are violating that social distance at 6 feet parameter, or if there's a contact trace, which we you know, that's all been varying over time, but we use 12 feet in that example. So, but that just really allows then, you know, the ability to not only inform the employer, but also the employee through our haptic response that they're too close to a colleague.
And that makes it much more simpler, right, than trying to figure out, you know, who to remember, right? Who you're in contact with. So how are your products helping businesses reopen? And with your experiences with risks, you know, is this innovation really mitigating those risks for the employer? So what have you seen, some real-time examples?
Well, so from a contact tracing, social distancing perspective, we've seen 80 to 90% improvement just within the first week because we have a haptic or the vibration. And so employees are reminded that they're too close to be next to each other. So so that's what we're finding with the social distancing and contact tracing. And that's a very quick metric for us. Whereas with our safety metrics, we see anywhere from 30 to 60% improvement in some of the riskier kind of behaviors at work. So some of the heart, you know, the things like the bending, twisting with acceleration, some of the hard cornering, hard braking on a forklift, for instance. But that typically is about 30 to 60 some percent. But yeah, we've seen great results, across the board with our clients. The metrics on the four corners are really more the safety metrics, and then again the social distancing, contact trace. It's almost instant.
It's amazing. When we talk about the contact tracing and having a lot of the data, right? So one of the questions we just got from one of the viewers is, so how is that stored? How do you deal with privacy? How do you do that?
With privacy, it's things have changed, and part of some of what we've done with some employers, because it really depends. Sometimes it's Jen Thorson, and I've been in contact with Erin Ford. And so, it really depends. And in other instances, it's employee 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and somebody has the key. It's normally in HR, or it might be in risk, who then would do the translate table to say, here's where we've had that, here's where we've had this interaction. But again, it really depends on their legal counsel, depends on how they view privacy. And so, not to be purposely vague, but it really depends on each company and who we come in contact with.
I'm sure it does. And that's, and part of that operations and putting the things into place, these are things we're all having to learn, and what is, what is best for those companies. So as you mentioned, and obviously all of us have gone through a lot, as your company has changed and adjusted, what is your biggest lesson learned? I'm always interested to know those things.
I mean, I think when I think about those, two things come to mind is, one, don't be afraid to pivot quickly. You've got a platform, we have a team of really smart people, and we can figure out almost any problem. So it wasn't really an if, it was kind of a when we can solve the problem. But I think most importantly is continue to keep in contact with your clients. All of our clients needed some kind of solution. Our clients needed support. They needed to hear what other people were doing. And those clients refer you to other clients who become your friends and who become your references. So that's been the piece that we've really discovered more than anything, is the support of our existing clients and their power to refer us to others.
Well, I think that's a great thing to note, is that there's power of partnerships. We talk about it a lot here at SCbio and with our members, and you see it here today, even just with all the companies that are here. And I like the part of not, it's not not if, it's when, and relying on those smart people that you have. So Jen, we thank you for joining us this morning and sharing your story with us and our viewers here today. And we're going to move on to our next story. And before we get to that, I do want to show, if you are interested, Jen has shared her contact information as well. So feel free to give her an email, and she can share more about her company and getting you involved with this. So another upstate company that is making headlines, Vitalink Research, based in Greenville, is a leading clinical research site network. And Vitalink was recently commissioned by Moderna to conduct its COVID-19 vaccine study here in South Carolina. Steve Clemons, CEO, is joining us to tell his company's story. So Steve, thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. You conduct clinical studies all the time. This one's different. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so, give a little backdrop on Vitalink and how we operate and how we're different. I'll kind of cover two in one, and then, of course, I love when audience interacts, so if there's any questions, obviously everyone chime in. So Vitalink was actually founded in 2004 with the vision from the founders being, let's just open a couple locations and do some work in clinical trials. And for most people who may not be in the space, which I'm learning through SCbio and the power of partnerships, that there's a lot of people that are in that space and in our neck of the woods. And so for those who don't know, whenever you look at things like TV commercials that say, "Do your somebody you love have asthma?" Doctors in your area. Well, those are us, and or people like us. So, Erin, as you said, clinical trials has been around forever. They've been going on a long time, and any time a new drug or a change in drug is to occur, if they want to change the purple pill to a pink pill, they have to put them through clinical trials. So, been around since 2004 with a main focus of pulmonary, and as Jen said, pivoting during COVID-19 is of the utmost importance. And so as the pandemic hit, people have two choices. They either pivot to see what they need to change, or they close. And depending on the essential worker or how the company feels about the disease itself, we chose to pivot to try to get in front of COVID-19. So with pulmonary being our mainstay, this pandemic just fit directly in with our clinicians. So we have 5 locations in the upstate of South Carolina, which are Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, Union, Gaffney. And when we first started to get into the vaccine space, which was never a main thought process for us, it was always kind of an additive. We may do 1 or 2 vaccine studies a year. We really reached out and started to focus on things. And so the trial that we're doing is the Moderna trial, which I think is all over the news and everyone hears about it. But it really was interesting, because I think, as Scotty said, there was no way to put together a pro forma on what you anticipated for this. And so when we got into this space, COVID-19 has created 2 polar opposite views on how people view this pandemic. And we just didn't know how people in the Southeast would feel about a vaccine trial. And of course, anytime you want to know how people feel, all you have to do is throw it on Facebook and watch the comments fly, and it's almost entertainment value at its best. So, we put a projection together for the drug company. We put a projection together for the CRO, who's the middleman between the drug company and us, and said that our goal was to offer this to 300 to 400 patients in the upstate of South Carolina. Through our conversations, we were awarded this trial to be the only provider in the upstate. We had 3 clinics, which was our larger clinics, Anderson, Greenville, and Spartanburg, that were offered to participate. And we partnered through people like SCbio to get the word out there, and along with some of our marketing vendors to say, let's just see what happens. And frankly speaking, we had such a response that it broke our call center. And in doing so, it's given us the ability to add more resources and so forth. But we actually had a response of over 5,000 people. And just on bandwidth of the company and where we stood, we really looked to offer this to maybe a couple thousand. But this study is just very different because it's a prevention type trial. It's a vaccine trial in a different arena. And, as others have said, COVID is the 9/11 of, I think as John said, COVID was the 9/11 of medicine. And other than your typical bargain basement inhaler type studies that we focus on in the past, which we still do, I mean, clearly that's going to be a mainstay of our business. COVID and these types of vaccine trials have really changed the face of Vitalink.
It's amazing to think how quickly it has changed. So you mentioned you had such a response. So are you still enrolling patients, or what qualifies them? How quickly does that happen?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And yes, we're still enrolling patients. It happens not as fast as some patients would like. They would like to show up at the door and hopefully we can do things. But just because of the almost assembly line fashion that these patients have to go through, a given site can enroll 30 to 40 patients on a day, and it takes bandwidth. And so part of that will come to as to how it changed our business. But in doing so, we've created online tools, through several conversations that we had with SCbio and others to be able to make it easier for patients to get involved. But to create online tools, call centers to be able to collect a lot of the medical histories and kind of minimize that time on site, because on top of this being a volume-driven clinical trial, you also have to remember that we have to maintain social distancing. We have to maintain all the same, safety measures with, this type of trial as you would with a restaurant or anything of that nature. And so in doing so, it is still enrolling. It will probably come to a trickle, if you will, from a fire hose to a trickle over the next month because of how the study is designed and where we're at with it. But not to just focus on this Moderna product, there's about 9 to 10 other products out there in the pipeline, and Vitalink is being looked because of our success, which to give backdrop, as I said, I was hoping to get 50 or 70 per site. We've now ended up where we will cross 1,000 total patients probably today. And our goal is by the end of next week, which is our bolus of enrollment period, will probably be at 1,300 to 1,400. And so there's a potential that we'll hit over 2,000 by the time this study ends. So on top of the Moderna product, you got 9 other products that are in the pipeline. And so I anticipate that this will be a main part of our business and offerings to the upstate of South Carolina as we move forward.
So it's changing the trajectory of your company, you know, with this study
Yeah.
and in the pipeline. And so, and you alluded to a little bit about how has this opened you up to partnerships. So talk a little bit about how you have been connecting with others. And
Yeah. No, it's you know, I think I said during our governor meeting with Governor McMaster last week that, you know, and I never was part of the company was never part of the forward-facing partnership model because we were too busy working. And, you know, to anybody watching, listening, or looking, you know, I'd actually asked them to change the way they think because I did after 15 years of doing this, 16 years of doing this. And through partnerships with SCbio, Nephron, you know, Vikor and others, you know, we're really looking at putting good minds together, great minds together. I throw myself as the good mind, but great minds in there together to say what is best for our state, what is best for our patients. And then of course, you know, everything else is just standard business, but once you put that first, it matters. So for Vitalink, the pandemic as a silver lining, and all the bad that's gone on with it, and I don't want to minimize that ever, is it obviously created a workflow that has allowed us to add, as of today's date, 44% more staff to our teams and grow the business to where we now have the ability to invest more into the things that were broken. So for example, you know, I mentioned when the call center hit, our website went down, our call center blew up, and, you know, we've actually built out a team of 4 people now that are just managing that process. And I could easily envision that there's, you know, 2 more needed down the road, but it's really changed the ability for us to deliver more to patients, which is the end game in all of this, is to hire people, put them in the clinics, and you know, in clinical trial space, it's typically either the bricks and mortar that is your limiting factor, it's the studies that are limiting factor, or it's your staff. And so, you know, we've taken leaps of faith, as John did with Zverse, and you know, sometimes I feel like Oprah Winfrey yelling out, "You get a job, you get a job," you know. But you know, that's actually one of the things that really drives us. And you know, serving our communities with opportunities, serving the employment for people that are coming out of a phase that they didn't have that, and of course, you know, serving the patients that are going to future be patients that are on able to take this vaccination or what other therapy that we're talking about. So it's really changed the trajectory of the business. And not all of that is the pandemic. It's somewhat how we responded to the pandemic in partnering with people. And so, you know, can't say enough about that, as well as, you know, I'm finding every day that I'm on a call or a Zoom conference that there's companies, and I think the next speaker is actually one of those that frankly have been in our space for years and years and years. In fact, probably since we founded, and yet we just never knew they extended or they existed, excuse me. And literally they're an hour and a half from us. So, you know, anytime we can, I'm all for serving the world, but anytime we can service South Carolina, then obviously we love to take care of our own backyard as well.
Well, that's wonderful. You're taking care of the patients, you're providing jobs in this tough economy. And as you alluded to, then the next speaker is doing the same thing as she grows her company and expands. Lynn Kennedy, CEO of Nephron Pharmaceuticals, is joining us next. Nephron Pharmaceuticals has been on the front lines of the nationwide COVID-19 response. The West Columbia-based company develops and produces safe, affordable generic inhalation solutions and suspension products that can be used to treat severe respiratory distress symptoms associated with COVID-19. We are lucky to have Lou Kennedy. She serves as our board chair on SCbio. And Lou, isn't it amazing to see all of these companies and board members, new board members at the forefront of innovation? So every time we talk to you, there is something new. So I would say let's just run with it and tell us what's the latest at Nephron.
Well, we broke ground on a 200,000 square foot expansion to really improve and expand our capabilities in warehouse logistics and secondary packaging. In the midst of that plan, we decided that because of COVID and for a host of other reasons, we should build another 110,000 square feet to build the clean rooms necessary for vaccines, antibiotics, and maybe some chemotherapeutic agents. All the while, we said we really need to get a building to house some spin-off businesses for components that will be injection molding. We find ourselves like John in the injection molding business and never intended to be. So we're going to start that up in down the road at the end of our industrial park. There'll be a building called the Kennedy Innovation Complex for 260,000 square feet, where we'll have 2 of our startup businesses in there, and then the rest will be offered up as empty space that economic development folks here in the state can market and have already, let's say, real estate and inventory. So that just wasn't enough. So we needed a parking lot across the street. So we're going to build out 10-acre parking lot across the street because we're just out of space here. And then about a couple of weeks ago, we were in conversation with folks in the federal government, and we may find ourselves in the active pharmaceutical ingredient business. Who knows? We've added a lot of things during COVID that we never intended. And so we may end up also attacking the API business. So those are the latest, newest things. And that's literally an idea only within the last couple of weeks.
Yes, and that's the thing. Something new every day, Lou, and we're thankful for that. And you're really preparing, it sounds like, too, talking about the space for what you've been vocal about is this reassuring and repatriation of pharmaceuticals, to your point. So why is this so important? Help people understand.
Well, a year ago, I had the opportunity to meet with President Trump and followed that up with a meeting with Secretary Azar about a month or so later. And then following that, Vice President Pence, and a couple of times. And I kept urging that we've got to get control of our own destiny. And we really need to be concerned about the fact that 98% of our precursor chemicals come from China. I buy most all of my active pharmaceutical ingredients from Europe and other countries, not just China, but other countries. And so in saying that, I said, I looked around, we have, basically I buy sodium bicarbonate and salt in the United States, 2 very simple items. So I really was, I felt compelled that we shouldn't be this dependent on our personal protective gear or our active pharmaceutical ingredients. So I was happy to host a few weeks or so back, Senator Graham, who's really gotten himself in the middle of this effort to bring those types of things back into America. And why not South Carolina? I mean, since this all started, not only did you hear from John and my favorite company to make face shields, Zverse, but also Milliken pivoted up in the upstate and they developed some fabric to do gowning garments. And we've all of us in healthcare have been fighting to get our requisite number of needed, let's call them bouffants or booties or gowning garments. And so in saying that, why couldn't we do that? I mean, I just had a thought while we were on this call. I want to ask John to potentially make goggles for us, because goggles have been a really big deal through all of this, and particularly the way they're vented and so forth. So I've been making notes about all the people on this call. Oh, maybe I could try this or that, because, we do have needs. And why can't, we've always heard from the Research Triangle. We've definitely all heard from New Jersey and that area of pharma, and of course on the West Coast. Why not make this bigger? We know it's the fastest growing sector. Why not blow this up and make South Carolina bigger than the Research Triangle? We can do it. We have the talent, we've got the research universities, we've got all the necessary ingredients, and we're growing. So I'm a big champion of that growth. I love my role as chairman of SCbio for that reason. I think I have a little side hustle in economic development. So we've thought, let's get in the game and build in our industrial park. It's an opportunity zone. It follows what Tim Scott's trying to do here in the country. So let's make this thing bigger. And that's what we're working on here at Nephron.
Well, you know, if John makes those goggles for you, you know, they'll be functional and fashionable as well. So you have been in the thick of things during this pandemic as you've ramped up operations. You know, what has surprised you most, either internally at Nephron or with your partnerships formed?
Well, you know, we had a couple of molecular biologists on staff here, but not for their degree, just because they were great in the lab. So when I guess probably about the end of March or 1st of April, we were looking at the hospitalization costs of, if you had a patient in COVID, the average cost of stay was about 80 grand. So I said to folks in our own lab, why don't we just see what this PCR sequence testing equipment costs? Because it seems to me if we were to avoid any of our own Nephron family becoming patients that were hospitalized, we could pay for that equipment. So I didn't know what it took to have a BSL level 2 or 3 laboratory space, but I know now we can just like we're a mini tiny version of some of the things that Vikor is doing. And we really decided to do PCR sequence testing as well as serology testing. We're doing nasopharyngeal swabs and saliva testing. We're working with the universities to help them develop their own capabilities and also look to them to help us develop new types of testing, perhaps that might even be quicker, but most of all accurate. And so we didn't know we were going to be in the CLIA lab business, but yet we are. And I decided if we're going to do it, let's do it right, not to the scale of Vikor because that's not our core competency, but we want to be good at what we do. I had no thoughts around making viral transport medium, but yet we're in that business since COVID. We also were able, using our partnership with UPS, to source out swabs that are made here locally in North Carolina. And so we're doing test kits and selling those. I never meant to be in that business. I certainly didn't mean to be in the hand sanitizer business, but when FDA asked us if we would do it, we were glad to answer the calls. And then finally, I was talking to one of the geneticists over at USC, and he said, hey, could you serialize spit tubes? I'm like, well, let's talk about what's a spit tube. And so then I realized, okay, well, I buy them for our test kits. They just wanted wider ones because they're doing a real big focus on saliva testing. So we were able to barcode and personalize so we could really help them with their HIPAA compliance and their ability to keep up with a lot of patients at once. So, you know, we're doing personalized spit tubes even. I mean, all of these things are new to us, but we have such great talent in the Nephron family. And when I ask our leadership, can we do it? They never say no. And we just find a way to do it. And so when I think about just the people on this call, I'm happy to be friendly with all of the folks on this call. And I'm thankful to know that the clinical trials that we have upcoming for our first new drug, we've been in generics a long time. Guess what? Those sites, most of the sites belong to Vitalink. And who knew that we were contracting through a third party just to come back home to South Carolina. So I'm happy to know Steve and the team at Vitalink. I'm happy to know John. I'm still trying to figure out my next move with Modjoul. And I've imagined that in the future, some of the research and development that Shea and Scotty mentioned, perhaps we might even be able to manufacture those products. So there's all kinds of synergy. We're working on a project with AVX, another member. We've got a project going with Ceramtech, which is a cool company in the upstate, and a few others, and I'm sure I'm leaving them out. But that's what I love about SCbio, is that this network is strong and growing, and we are you know, helping one another. It's the spirit of South Carolina, right? And you see it in this industry oh so well. So we love being here. I'm glad to be back home. People know that. And I'm happy to be as you know, someone mentioned earlier, there are some silver linings, hopefully, that we'll find out of this pandemic. One is this ability to strengthen our partnerships. Another is the razor sharp focus we've brought to rural broadband and the needs for telehealth, telemedicine, and what we can do with that. So if we get a better rural broadband effort in this state, then I think that will be one of those small silver linings that come out of this pandemic.
Well, Lou, we appreciate your insight, your perspective, all of our panelists here this morning. We look forward to learning about more innovation and successes as we all work to beat back COVID. I think today's stories are just an example of, some of the things we can focus on, some of the good things we can focus on as we're all dealing with being back at work, having kids go back to school, and managing so many things. One simple thing that we can all do, you don't have to be an innovator, is, we talk about it often, wear your mask. We've got an SCbio mask here for you. You'll be seeing more of this. Our industry leaders will be wearing them as well. Well, if you're interested in learning more about medtech, pharmaceuticals, digital health, we invite you to take part in our upcoming Life Sciences Boot Camp. It's a virtual event. It will be Wednesday, September 23rd from 8:15 to 12:15. You'll come away with from this packed program with new insights, actionable information, plus great new relationships. We talked a lot about that today with industry thought leaders through virtual networking sessions. So head to our website at scbio.org to register. We hope that you enjoyed today's program, learned a lot, and know that life sciences is making a difference. The executives here in our state are helping us and the nation as we battle against COVID-19.